Here's everything that's gonna happen in One Piece in 2024 according to you, the Grand Fleet. I want to put a bit of a warning on this video right now. This could be the most spoiler-filled video of 2024. Because what I've done is ask my audience for their 2024 predictions with One Piece. I've taken the most common ones as well as some wacky left-field shenaniganry and slapped them on a bingo board. And you guys are very, very clever. So traditionally, we do quite well with these. The only exception being the Egghead arc specific bingo we did, where our focus was narrowed to Frankie. And to this day, we've still only crossed one item off. That was an abysmal failure. I mean, I guess there is still technically time for everything else to happen, but look, with the annual bingos, we're pretty decent with those. In fact, in 2022, we even achieved a super rare double bingo, or indeed bing, because we use a 4x4 card. So again, beware because this could spoil quite a bit, or at least some. But to begin, let's figure out exactly what it is we're working with. In 2023, there were only 32 chapters of One Piece, the lowest year on record, which for the first time featured 2 extended Oda breaks. One for the Netflix live action release, and another because he needed eye surgery later in the year. Both of those breaks are pretty unusual, but just looking at how chapter numbers have been trending over the years, I think that we can expect somewhere between 30 to 35 chapters in 2024. Now I go to the trouble to point this number out because we sometimes receive criticism for using a 4x4 bing board for these. A lot of bingo purists insist that the game is corrupt without their beloved 5x5. But the reason why we do this is because 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 is half of 32, which is exactly the number of chapters that came out last year. Which means that if all of our predictions were to come true, then we would need to be crossing one off every second chapter. So just due to the number of One Piece chapters in any given year, the 4x4 format is the one that actually gives us a chance of hitting a bing. So let's begin with time to go to Elbaf. So this was by far the most common prediction, which is why we're starting with it. And fair enough, because where else can we go? At the moment, the crew haven't been on Egghead Island long enough for Nami's New World log post to adjust and point towards new destinations. So it's currently locked onto the 3 possibilities that they had leaving Wano. One of them being Egghead itself. Another one is Winter Island, which is a big old bunch of dicks, so we're not going there. And of course, Elbaf. Vegapunk even named Elbaf, which alerted Luffy and Usopp to the possibility of going there. And the thing about Luffy is that once his mind is set on something, there's no changing it. He is the captain. He chooses the destination, and it's really difficult to see him passing up the opportunity to visit the islands that he's wanted to go to ever since Little Garden. Also, in Oda's Jump Festa message, he said that even though he thought of a path forward without visiting this certain island, he never would have been able to convince Luffy not to go because Luffy is, in all seriousness, often more in charge of this story than the author is. So the first bing spot is filled with going to Elbaf. I will say that this really is the make or break of this entire bing card, because a lot of your predictions were based on the assumption of potential Elbaf events. So if we don't end up going there, then we're in a bit of trouble. But the only way I can see that not happening is if Kuma teleports everyone somewhere else. But otherwise, our destination is pretty much locked. But speaking of, Kuma will die. So this one's quite debatable because it's well within the realm of possibility that Kuma is already dead and therefore cannot do it again. I mean, that's one of the core ideas of Egghead Island, what constitutes life and or individuality. But I think the spirit of this prediction is more along the lines that we'll see a full stop on whatever currently remains of Bartholomew Kuma on Egghead. Whether he's technically alive or whether this is his remaining instinct in action, whatever it is, we'll see it power down for good. I've also been trying to think of a way that we leave Egghead without Kuma dying, but I don't know if it's possible. I mean, it would be great for Oda to finally give this man a break, but I do think that would go on to very much undermine the journey it's taken to get here. And considering that we've got Saint Saturn, Kizaru, and a fleet of 100 marine ships to deal with, I don't know if we can get away with this without a sacrifice. And in fact, I'm not going to put them on the bing card because none of you guys predicted this, but I'm also half expecting a few more Vegapunk satellites to go down as well. That or we'll resurrect Shaka and Pythagoras because it's One Piece. But this was the second most popular prediction, so the death of Bartholomew Kuma is going on the bing board. Egghead will end, but later than most think. So this might seem like a bit of a cop-out prediction, but remember that we only have about 30 chapters in a year. And Egghead does feel like it's nearing the end, but it's felt like that for a long time now. And even if, say, there's 10 chapters left to wrap everything up, that is still a whole third of our entire One Piece calendar. I do think it'll end pretty soon and probably pretty suddenly, because it's not like an arc where we have a conflict and then we get to take the time to chill and party afterwards. If anything, Egghead will probably end very similarly to how Sabati did, a desperate escape and then instantly moving on. But this was the third most commonly suggested prediction, and likely the most guaranteed one of the entire list, so on the card it goes. Dragon doing something, or anything. I really don't know about this. We've been waiting 20 years for that one to come true, so I don't know why 2024 should be any different. But the reason why this was the fourth most common prediction is because 2024 is the year of the dragon. So it would be thematically in keeping with RL if 2024 was also the year of dragon doing something in One Piece as well. So here's what I could see happening. In response to the events of Egghead Island, I could see the Revolutionary Army mobilizing, especially if Saint Saturn is killed or otherwise defeated, because it would produce an unprecedented vulnerability within the world government. It also depends on how much damage is done to all the Marines as well. They have 100 ships here. That is a colossal percentage of their fleet, and if they incur serious losses, then their grip on global stability is going to be almost impossible to maintain. What I love most is that almost every one of these dragon comments I saw was very non-specific. They never said what they wanted Dragon to do. They just wanted him to do something, literally anything. And those very low standards are going to be reflected on the Bing board because we just want Dragon to do something. Please, come on, guy. We'll find the last road Poneglyph and the man with the burn scar. So the last road Poneglyph I'm not entirely sure about. I do feel like it'll probably happen within the next arc or so, but mathematically, I just don't know if it'll work out to be 2024. Again, even if Egghead has even 10 chapters left, then that doesn't leave a whole lot of time to really dive deeply into Elbaf or whatever it is that comes next. So I wouldn't personally bet on finding the final road Poneglyph in 2024, and luckily most of you didn't bet on that either. Most of you are much more focused on the man with the burn scar, because I agree that we could potentially discover the man with the burn scar or at least learn his identity, because really we need to find out who he is before we see the last road Poneglyph. Because if we were to find the Poneglyph before meeting him, then what was the point of the him? So I'm going to put down discover the man with the burn scar on the Bing board, which I'm going to interpret as either meeting him or otherwise just figuring out who it is. The return of Jaguar D Sol. And this is what I meant by really betting everything on Elbaf. If we do go to Elbaf, I think this is about as guaranteed as anything could be to happen, because it's not like Sol is just going to conveniently not be there as soon as Robin arrives. He's been in hiding on Elbaf. Where else could he possibly go? And as soon as the crew land, he would have to be Robin's first priority, which means that even if we do have limited time on Elbaf in 2024, I do think that Sol returning is something that's going to happen sooner rather than later. I think Kizaru is absolutely going to flip. All right, back to Egghead. We still have a bit of wrap up to do, and the last chapter of 2023 really put a big old question mark over the future of Kizaru. This is an idea that I'd previously dismissed because Kizaru hadn't shown any level of emotion. I mean, yeah, there was some respect for Sentomaru, I guess that's a level, but for the most part, Kizaru just kept saying, "Oh no, I don't want to hurt my friends. Friends don't make me hurt you," which he said whilst gleefully hurting them. However, it looks like his time on the floor may have given him an epiphany, as he did show what appears to be genuine concern for both Sentomaru and Bonnie. I do think that Kizaru flipping is very specific language though. It implies that he'll betray the world government and perhaps even join our alliance to some degree. So I'm not sure if it'll go that far. So what I'm going to put on the card instead is Kizaru Redemption, which essentially means any action he takes which results in the betterment of our protagonist at the cost of the world government. Not necessarily a full-on flip, but maybe just, a cheeky little push in the right direction for the sake of old friends. Dragon's powers revealed, and Loki's appearance will be revealed. I'm going to ignore that first part because we've already covered Dragon. I don't know if he'll do anything let alone reveal his powers. That's a big ask. Loki, however, that's an interesting question. Loki, along with Rocksteady Zebek, is one of the rare lingering unrevealed silhouettes of the series. Someone who we've been waiting to see since 2017, and someone who will probably look nothing like the silhouette Oda drew back then. We're going to meet Loki eventually. And at this point, I think it's more fun to place bets on just how wacky his final design is going to be, because that's the Oda formula. Come up with a really cool silhouette and then completely subvert it. Loki, however, already has a pretty wacky silhouette, so either his goofosity is going to be completely off the charts, or he might be a rare character who goes against the Oda trend, has a wacky silhouette but a super sleek and cool real design. Whatever the case, we'll find out soon enough, and for now we're going to plonk Loki revealed onto the Bing board. Enel will come back. Alright, so I want to preface this by saying that this is unlikely. Enel will probably return to the series one day, but it's impossible to predict when. However, this was a shockingly popular prediction, so I do feel the need to honor your voices. For anyone not caught up, or for anyone who's just forgotten, that's fine. Not everyone can remember everything, but the last time we saw Enel, he was on the moon and ended up acquiring an army of cyborgs. And these little little guys are very interesting because a few of these automata, such as First Lieutenant Spacey, were allegedly created on Karakuri Island, the birth island of Dr. Vegapunk. So that's the whole big mystery. How can something that was created on this planet also be native to the moon? And that's the one viable thread I guess I could see connecting Enel to events soon to come, because they do have an indirect connection to Vegapunk. Still, this is probably the most wildcard prediction, but look, you've all had your say, and Enel's return is going on the Bing board. Me gustaría que toda la tripulación sepa más sobre Joy Boy y su conexión con Luffy. And gracias for that. It's always interesting to see people comment in non-English languages, considering that this is not a bilingual channel, but welcome. Essentially though, our Spanish-speaking Nakama is offering the prediction that he would like the crew to learn more about Joy Boy, and specifically how Luffy is connected to Joy Boy, which I think is a fine prediction. We're very much getting to the point in One Piece where we can't go anywhere or do anything without stepping into a new puddle of Joy Boy intrigue, and it's actually at the stage where most new characters we meet with, or most previously uninteracted with characters, do know something about Joy Boy. Like Vegapunk and Saturn on Egghead Island, or Kuma, even Kuma, and Bonnie, even Kizaru knew a thing. So we're gonna slap this on the card as Joy Boy lore drop. I can say for sure that there will be a total of 3 named character deaths this year. I really like this prediction because what it does is it creates a game within a game. We're not just waiting for this one thing to tick off. No, this prediction has multiple criteria, and I don't think it's terrible at all. In fact, if we'd had this prediction for 2023 Bing, then it would have been easily cleared with the deaths of Shaka, Pythagoras, and Ginny. Oda appears to be getting considerably more bloodthirsty in his middle-aged mangaka years, but maybe it might be a bit mistimed. Again, it would have been great for last year, but this year we have the prospect of an arc introduction, and people don't usually die full stop, I guess, but especially not right at the beginning of arcs. So with this one, I guess what we're betting on is for Egghead Island to have a particularly brutal ending. Something to do with Kuma, Saturn, maybe even a satellite or 2, and then we've crossed this bad boy off. But yeah, why not? It sounds like fun. So let's put 3 named character deaths on the card. It's important to have the named part because the characters, they have to actually be something that we kind of care about. Like, we're not going to accept stuff such as the random Marine whose head exploded. Return of Urouge. I don't think that this is at all unreasonable. We have 1 West Generation member left to explore and very limited space left in One Piece to conduct said exploration. So it's kind of now or never for Mad Monk Urouge. I'm not saying that he'll have an arc to the extent as Law or Bonnie, but giving him something to do, that would be nice. And it's been such a long time since we've seen him. His last appearance was in chapter 795, which was when Kaido was officially introduced after jumping off of Sky Island. So we've actually had the entire 4 Emperor saga go by without an appearance from Urouge. So I think we're overdue for some Mad Monk check-in. And given that Urouge is a sky person, I do imagine that he could tie very, very nicely into the finale of One Piece. He might even be another character who knows a lot more about Joy Boy than we initially thought, just due to his heritage. So let's go with Return of Urouge. It's a safe assumption that Vivi will likely rejoin the Straw Hats, in either on the way to Elbaf or on the island itself, since she was with the crew on Little Garden, so it'd make sense to reunite there. Safe is, it's definitely not the word I would use, but I will say you are not alone in this Vivi reunion design. I mean, I myself would love to see it. I agree that Vivi being present on Elbaf would be perfect for a hit of nostalgia, because it would be like an amped up post-time skip Little Garden. And there's also only so many places that Vivi can flee to. Even in the care of Big News Morgans, Emu has stated that he wants that Vivi, and the whole world government is going to relentlessly hunt them down. There's not many islands in the world that one could go to feasibly escape that. Wano might be an option. The world government aren't particularly keen on intruding there, but Elbaf would be the other, because they're terrified of reactivating the famous army of giants. And look, if I was Big News Morgans in a big desperate situation, I'd say that seeking asylum with the nearest Emperor of the Sea sounds like a pretty solid idea. However, that Emperor might not be Luffy. And you know what, it'd be kind of funny if Vivi ended up with Buggy, if only because Crocodile is the effective leader of Cross Guild, so I would love to see those two interacting again after so long. Sort of like Vivi and Warpol's reunion. But the specific prediction was that Vivi will rejoin the crew, and so that's what we're going to put on the card, which, you know, big if true. I wonder if Saturn's powers are, as a devil, related to contracts. That would be really fun because he did make a contract with Kuma and everything. But the prediction that I'm turning the statement into is that we will have the revelation of exactly what Saint Saturn's powers are. Whether it's devil fruit related, science-based, a pact with an ancient satanic demon, perhaps even the titular Satan himself. Maybe a mix of everything, doesn't matter. I just want to know how he does it. All I'm looking for is an answer as to what he is and how he can do all of the things it is that he does. So we're going to put Saturn power explanation on the card. Shanks versus Blackbeard. Okay, so I've already done a whole video on this one, but Oda's Jump Festa statement hyped up a long-awaited conflict between, quote, this person and, quote, that person. And whilst he didn't actually say who the quoted people were, Shanks and Blackbeard are the frontrunners, so that's why this conflict is on the card. Giant Gear 5th Luffy versus some Elbafian giants. Fairly simple desire. Luffy can become a giant now, so why not? And that completes the 2024 Grand Line Review One Piece Bing card. If I'm honest, I'm a little bit worried that half the card is completely dependent on going to Elbaf. And not only that, but getting there before, say, the middle of the year in order to have time for so many things to happen. But again, you guys are all very clever, and I look forward to seeing just how much the Grand Fleet gets correct this year. So you let me know in the comments, what do you think is the first Bing prediction that will come true?